guys, it's Liana. Happy Thanksgiving for me. For you, I don't know when you're seeing this, but right now it is Thursday, the 28th of November at 5:20 in the morning. I did not wake up at 5 a.m. just to do my makeup and start making dinner. My sleep schedule just has this tendency to flip around, and I am currently nocturnal. I've been awake since 8 p.m. I've gotten into cosplay. My neck is still kind of purple. I don't think it's showing on camera, thankfully. And I have an ice pack stuffed into the back of my bra because I'm in pain. But let's make Thanksgiving dinner. Thankfully, there's only 3 things I need to do right now, but before we get into that, let me share with you the menu for tonight. My grandpa and I don't really do the normal turkey dinner that most families do on Thanksgiving. I've talked about that on here before. We usually do a pot roast. Last year it was a beef pot roast, and the year before that it was a pork pot roast, just because those are the pre-made pot roast packs I could find at the time. But this year I am making a turkey pot roast from scratch. I got a recipe from framedcooks.com. All the recipes will be in the description of this video, by the way. Now, when it comes to the side dishes, that's where I'm getting a bit lazy, because my grandpa and I both really love these Bob Evans mashed potato and mac and cheese things you can get. You just pop them in the microwave and they taste really good. So while I can make homemade mac and cheese and mashed potatoes, I know this is high quality food and I am a disabled person. So if I can save myself some time and energy, I'm gonna do that. We also have Hawaiian rolls. We love these. We love these. I could probably make these myself too, but again, why do all that extra work when we know these are good? Editing Liana here. I forgot to add that I had a can of cream style sweet corn that was just for myself because my grandpa wouldn't eat it and I knew he wouldn't eat it, so I just got a little Great Value can of it just for me. However, the pot roast isn't the only thing I'm cooking from scratch. I am also making 2 pies, an apple pie and a pumpkin pie. I'm gonna be following 4 different recipes for this: apple pie crust, pumpkin pie crust, apple pie filling, pumpkin pie filling, and again, all in the description. Now, I did go ahead and save myself a lot of trouble today by going ahead and making the fillings and the apple pie topping ahead of time. I made these a few days ago. And on that side of the screen, you will be seeing some of the footage from that. I was gonna open this up to show you the apple pie filling, but it's really good. It's on there. It's on there. So I'm just gonna leave it on there until it's time to cook the pie and just show you the bottom. Oh God, it leaked. How can it be on there so tightly but still be leaking? Well, that happened. We're done fighting with the Pyrex container. We're mad at the Pyrex container, actually. The Pyrex container. Can I swear this early in a video? I'm not eligible for monetization anyway. See this? Well, there goes a press on. It's 5:30 in the morning. Anyway, this is the apple pie topping. It's gonna be a Dutch apple pie because those are easier to make than a lattice. I already made the topping, as you can see over here, except I didn't get all the footage I needed. For some reason, I just didn't hit the record button. So you didn't get to see me throwing all the ingredients into the container, but you did get to see me mashing them up with my hands. My leg is wet. I also made a pumpkin pie topping, which I know is in there good because this is a mason jar and the top is down, so. I need to take 5. Fresh pants! And I glued my nail back on. I don't really care about that. That can stay. Anyway, you're all caught up. The 3 things I mentioned I need to do this morning is prep the pie crusts. I decided to do that a bit early. And throw the pot roast in the pot. Let's start with the pot roast.
All my mixing bowls were dirty, so I had to use a cake pan for this step, but it actually worked pretty well for what I was trying to do. At this step, I had to coat the turkey with some sort of flour seasoning mixture. It said poultry seasoning, but I don't own poultry seasoning, nor do I own Sage. So I asked ChatGPT to make a substitution recipe for me. It ended up being parsley, thyme, nutmeg, and rosemary with a pinch of salt. I also didn't have enough butter for everything I needed to cook today, so since I only needed 2 tablespoons for the turkey, I ended up opting for some margarine. And something funny happened when I cut into the turkey. It ended up oozing this brown stuff, and I was so scared the turkey went bad. But it turned out there was a packet of gravy in there that was now contaminated because it came in contact with raw poultry. So I had to throw that out, which is kind of upsetting because I ended up not making enough gravy and I would have loved to have extra, but oh well. Once the turkey was fully coated, I threw it straight into the Instant Pot. Easy peasy.
Okay, now we're gonna have a bit of a problem because I have to mix my tomato paste in to a bunch of other things. But my tomato paste is frozen and it was honestly not mixed well enough, so it's kind of chunky. I'm thinking maybe defrost it in the microwave and throw it in the blender? It's homemade, that's why it's chunky. Not because it's bad. I just didn't use a food processor, I used a knife. I think I'm gonna throw this in the microwave and then in the blender and pray.
That ended up working perfectly. I just had to scrape it out of the bottom of the blender to get it out. I added in the flour, Worcestershire sauce, chicken stock, and some fresh chopped parsley. Mixed it all together, then remembered I can't add this to the pot yet because I need to add in the onion, carrots, and potato first. So I quickly got to work chopping up an onion.
I still have to chop the potatoes, but I already chopped the carrots. I called for baby carrots, but they are more expensive and I was trying to save a couple bucks. So I bought whole carrot and chopped it to be smaller than baby carrots. And because they're frozen, they'll cook in the same amount of time despite being smaller. I researched this to double check.
I quickly chopped up the potatoes into halves and quarters before throwing that in the Instant Pot with everything else, finishing it off with the mixture from before.
It is currently 6:17. My grandpa wanted to start eating at 4, which is so early, but okay, go off. And it takes 8 hours. So, delay start by 2 hours, and then I'll be ready at 4. Never used the delay start on here. That has been set. It will start cooking in 2 hours. I should have waited 2 hours to get started on this, but the plan was for me to throw this in and then go to bed and then wake up later. But then I remembered the pie. Maybe I just will make the pie later when I wake up. It won't take very long. It's just pie crust.
It is now 2:30 in the afternoon. I made the horrible decision of sleeping in the makeup. Always a bad idea, but I did it. I just really didn't feel like washing my face twice. I already took a shower this morning, but I had to do my makeup for a video. Not just this video, another video. I had 2 videos to make this morning. Anyway, the pies have to be baked separately because they cook at different times. Whichever one cooks at the lower temperature is the one I'm going to do first, and then I'm going to turn the temperature up and then put in the second pie. I also ate immediately before bed. Like, I ate sitting on the side of my bed, set the bowl down, and then laid down, and I am still starving right now. So I might take care of that before I get started on the pie crust, or else I will be tempted to eat raw dough. The delay start function worked. I was a bit worried about it because I'd never used it before, but it worked. We still have 1 hour and 42 minutes left, which is perfect. It's set to keep warm because it'll probably finish cooking before everything else is done. I am going to eat some leftover ramen and then it will be pie time. I spent way too long scrolling TikTok. It's been like 1 hour, but it is time to make the apple pie crust. I've decided to do this applesauce and oat combo apple pie crust. I'm being quirky and weird and unique. It's literally just throwing these oats in a blender to make them coarse and then adding applesauce to it. It is the easiest pie crust I can make. I do need to do a couple things to make it work with a apple pie because this recipe was designed for cold pie fillings and I need to make a few adjustments. I read all the comments on the recipe and figured out what I need to do to make this work for warm pie filling. Thankfully, I ran the dishwasher before I went to go to sleep because the reason why I used a cake pan and a bread loaf pan when I was mixing ingredients earlier is because all my mixing bowls are dirty, and so was the blender from the tomato paste. And I don't have a food processor. I'm gonna have to do this in the blender. Good thing I washed that. Thankfully, I am no stranger to throwing some oats in a blender to make oat flour. I do it all the time for banana pancakes. I may have made it a bit too smooth, but oh well. And mixing it up, it just had this weird consistency, so I added a bit more applesauce, which may have been a really bad idea, but oh well, I did it. No turning back now. I know most pie crusts are supposed to roll them out and then like drape them into the pan, but I didn't do that. I kind of just dropped the pie crust in and molded it with my fingers like Play-Doh, which was not a good decision. I do not recommend that.
Time to throw this in the oven for about 20 minutes, and while that's going, I will start cleaning up, I guess. The crust recipe I'm using for the pumpkin pie is a bit complicated and a bit more time consuming, so I'm gonna get started on that now, even though I haven't even gotten the apple pie fully going yet.
Once I cleaned up my workstation and prepped a bit, I got together all the ingredients for the pumpkin pie crust, but before I could really start mixing it, it was time to take the apple pie crust out of the oven. Unfortunately, I decided that scooping it in was too much work, and I just dumped the whole thing in, which ended up being the worst decision ever because it overflowed, made a huge mess, and I just tried desperately to salvage it.
It's fine. Oh god. Just gonna put it back in the oven, it's fine.
Once the apple pie was back in the oven, I cleaned up my workstation and got back to work on the pumpkin pie crust. I found it was easier to mix with my hands because of the cold butter. I could kind of just squish it together. I made sure to wear some food safe gloves with this because I didn't want to have to deal with the butter grease on my hands, and I wouldn't have to worry about losing a press on in the dough. I regret not adding more water to the dough because my grandpa said it was dry the next day, but oh well. I rolled out the pie crust, filled the pan, and then threw it in the fridge to rest as per the recipe. Then it was time to take the turkey out of the pot and cut it up, but it was so tender, it was just falling apart. There was really only a few big pieces I had to chop up, but none of the turkey breasts were still whole when I took them out. I heated the pumpkin pie filling up on the stove because I read that helps it come out creamier, I guess. I tried it. That's what I did. It was still heating up when I took the apple pie out of the oven. I decided to make that a problem for future me and carry on as planned. Now that the apple pie was out of the oven, I could now par-bake the pumpkin pie crust. I forgot to poke holes in the bottom of the crust, which ended up being an easily fixable problem later. At least I remembered to make a pie made out of brown rice and aluminum foil.
You're gonna smell burning, but don't worry.
Oh, you're running an experiment?
The apple pie overflowed and is on the bottom of the oven. So you're going to smell that residue burning as I cook the pumpkin pie. But there's no fire. I will closely watch.
While the crust was par baking, I got to work on the gravy, which was literally just water and this packet that I got from Walmart for like less than $1. I really wish I would have kept the real gravy from the turkey, but I didn't want to risk salmonella. It wasn't quite time to heat the gravy up yet, but I had it mixed together and ready to go. I also got out the cream corn and put that into a microwave safe dish ahead of time as well, just so I have one less step to do later. When the pumpkin pie crust was done par baking, I had a bunch of air bubbles underneath because I forgot to poke those fork holes, but because it was only par baked, it was still doughy enough that I could go in with a fork, poke those holes, and smooth out the air bubbles before adding the filling. I put that in the oven to cook while I took a break. Once it was done, I set it aside to cool while I got to work on the sides, and that is just microwave time. Seriously, it's just sitting at the microwave, stirring things, pressing buttons, and occasionally rolling back over to the stove to stir the gravy, which I was heating on the stovetop. I also made a quick batch of peppermint hot cocoa. And that's it. That was my Thanksgiving spread. I am quite proud of it. I went ahead and made myself a portion, saving desserts for later. The apple pie was a total flop. It literally needed to be scooped out. You couldn't get a slice. I did eat one scoop and then threw the rest away. It just was bad. It's 9:30. I took my makeup off. My grandpa said he would clean up the kitchen after. He's asleep now, and I just walked into the kitchen. I guess he forgot.
He's an old man, I'm not gonna get mad at him, but I am allowed to be frustrated. Ah! Food away, counters mostly wiped down, dishwasher running, remaining dishes soaking. We're good. I can relax now. It is 10 p.m. I've been working pretty much nonstop since 3. I've only had a break to actually eat the food I made. Oh, and Animal Crossing.
But hey, it was a happy Thanksgiving overall, and I got to eat leftovers for weeks.